have Mr. Amarin Bunharn, the Assistant Director of Loss Prevention, that's going to present for us really quickly.
Good morning, part of ASEAN Summit meeting. So we got one VIP here, so that's why the police takes over security in-house. So let's start with safety briefing. I'm gonna start with emergency reporting. In the guest room, we have telephone in the guest room, which is you can place the emergency button, and then 24-hour service. For in case of emergency, you can report them directly, and then you can get the assist from hotel. Fire alarm procedure. So I can say like this: we are now in the room which is on the second floor of the building. So in case of emergency, that we have to evacuate the building, or in case of fire alarm, so the staircase will be on your right hand side when we exit from this room. That's staircase number one. Number two will be on your left hand side. So go down to G floor, after that get out, and then our assembly point will be in front of the hotel. So this is our assembly point. We also design the assembly point two places, one in front of the hotel and another one behind the hotel, depend on the circumstance of emergency. Emergency logistic. So the hospital nearby, we do have Samitivet Hospital and Bamrung Rat Hospital, which is 15 minutes. They can send ambulance to pick you up at the hotel. So this is that I mentioned, Samitivet Hospital and Bamrung Rat Hospital. Just show the way to the hospital. That's it. Do you have any questions? All right. Thank you very much. Enjoy your meeting. ขอบคุณครับ
Thank you. All right, so first, before we get started, just a little bit of housekeeping. If everybody can please put their phones on mute so we don't have any ringtones or anything happening, during, especially the panelists, so we don't have any interruptions during the panel. But first, hello everyone. Thank you very much for joining us, and welcome to the first prep cluster of RSPO's 17th Annual Roundtable Conference. Thank you for making it very early. I'm sure a lot of you, just like all of us here in the panel, are very jet-lagged from your travels, so thank you for waking up and joining us for the very first prep cluster of the conference. So my name is Cameron Plesh. I am the Deputy U.S. Representative for the RSPO. And today we're joined by 4 distinguished panelists to discuss a very important topic. So recently I was scrolling through my phone, looking through the news, which is very curated for palm oil, which this is probably one of the few rooms in the world where I am in similar company with that. And I saw a few competing headlines, which are really shocking to me. I saw one that was talking about amazing satellite technology that was titled, "Palm Oil Giants Double Down on Deforestation with New Radar System." And right next to it was another article with a competing headline that said, "If sustainability is the true objective, we need to focus not on new technological fixes, but on the recovery of local, time-tested agroecological practices." So I started thinking to myself, which is it? Are technological advancements going to help us achieve our mission of trying to make sustainable palm oil the norm? And can we include smallholders with that? Or should we be focusing more on going to more natural processes and traditional processes as well? Or just like with all things in palm oil, is it not a very clear yes or no answer? So that's what we're going to be discussing here today with our panel. Today we are joined by Ms. Vera Belazelkowska. Got it, nailed it. She's the Director of Programs with Alula. And we also have Mr. Eric Malmstrom. He's the CEO of Saferaces. We have Ms. Maria Goretti. She's the Palm Oil Program Manager for Solidaridad Colombia. And finally, we have Mr. Nicholas Chung, the Global RSPO Scheme Manager for BSI Group. And before we get started, I'm going to go with an overview, a little bit of what our format's going to be today. So each of our presenters here are going to have 10 minutes to present on their topic, and then we're going to get a little experimental here, so hopefully it works out. We have 4 tables around the corners of the room here. Each of the panelists, after they're done the presentations, are going to be sitting at a different table. We're going to give you the opportunity to speak directly one-on-one with each of the speakers to be able to give more individual question and answer sessions. We ask that you either stand around the table or grab a chair near one of the tables and move it over if you would like to sit. And then when we're done with that, we're going to try to move the chairs back and put them where they were. We'll see if that works out smoothly or not. But you don't have to bring the chair that you're sitting in right now. Try to grab one close to a corner or to stand. You can move around to different tables during the 20-minute Q&A session. After that, we are going to come back to the table. We're going to bring all the panelists back up and have one final round of statements and questions as well. So with that, we're going to start with Ms. Verabella Zelkowska, and she's going to be presenting on digital worker engagement for the advancement of the RSPO human rights and social standards.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for the introduction, and thank you for being here so early. We have the hard task of waking you up and keeping you interested, and hopefully you've had some coffee as well. So it's a pleasure to be here and share a bit about our work and some of the collaborations that we've done with the RSPO in advancing worker engagement. So Alula is a technology that we are leveraging to amplify the voices of workers and community members that are most impacted by business operations in global supply chains. So palm oil is one sector we work in. We also work in the extractive sector in mining, textile and garment, and other agricultural supply chains. But our main goal is to think about how can we leverage the technologies that we already have available, so not only advancing and innovating new things, but also what is most accessible to workers so that we can leverage that technology to monitor human rights and labor rights and social risks in the global supply chains around the world. So the Alula platform is meant to be as accessible and as simple as possible. So oftentimes what that means is creating perhaps an advanced system on the back end that is analyzing data. It's a software as a service, so it's a software platform that can aggregate data in real time. However, when it comes to the worker, we try to already create a connection with whatever technology they have available. So that means that while we have an app and we use web channels, QR codes, and other more advanced channels of communication, we are mostly connecting to workers through their telecommunication operator. So that means a text message chatbot, IVR, interactive voice response chatbot. So the multi-channel aspect is really important to make sure that the systems that we build actually are fit for the population we're trying to engage. Having a system available in multiple languages not only can create more trust with the workers, but then we can ensure that the data that we are collecting is as accurate as possible. We do work in supply chains that have a lot of migrant workers, so it's very important to ensure that workers engage in the language that they prefer most. And then with our partnerships with telecommunication companies around the world, we're able to deploy Alula in pretty much any place. Perhaps Ethiopia or North Korea are a little more challenging than China or Brazil. But we are able to scale the partnerships because of these connections that we have to get to the most simple channel that a worker might use. So I'll take a step back a little bit and speak about technology as a conduit for change. All of us have little mini computers in our back pockets. Every single thing we do every day is slightly made easier by these apps and these websites that can help us get from point A to point B a little bit easier with less hassle, less traffic. And it's been amazing to watch in the last decade the use of these technologies, information and communication technologies, in the space of international development, in the space of supply chain transparency. We've seen the application of blockchain, of using metadata to make more interesting and more broad correlations. Lots of technology coming up about supplier reporting and self-assessments and sustainability scoring. Worker voice technologies, as well as the use of artificial intelligence or natural language processing to try to make some of these interactions even easier. So this has been very encouraging, but at the same time, we want to make sure that we always design and leverage these tools with the gap in the digital space in mind. There's still 4 billion people around the world that don't have access to the internet. This could mean they don't have access to a smartphone or data, or there's no Wi-Fi hotspots available, or their smartphones don't have a lot of storage. So downloading apps or being engaged with something more advanced could be a challenge. So we have to keep that in mind when we talk about technology, when all the way down to the last mile, the worker, the community member. We have to also think about digital literacy. A lot of workers, and I'll speak a little bit more to our experience with our pilot project, it's not always easy. We think that some of these engagements are quite simple, but we have to make sure that we accommodate them to the literacy and the digital literacy of the stakeholders we want to engage most. And then gratuity of systems like these are really important. So getting toll-free phone lines, being able to reimburse people for the airtime and mobile credit they use to provide their feedback is really important. There's lots of opportunities. Thinking about how communication channels can open up an engagement with workers, we can get more timely insights in human rights issues before they become a big risk. The technology itself enables us to anonymize data. So feedback lines that are, a box in the middle of a cafeteria might not work so well because they don't feel anonymous. And if a worker wants to hear back about their issue, their employer might not be able to do that unless the worker discloses who they are. So there is an opportunity to make these tools more accessible and therefore also anonymous. We've been trying and innovating around triangulation of data, so looking at external data sources and how some of the information we collect from workers could be triangulated with social audit data or other types of information to boost the reliability of it. So it's a way to validate. An auditor might find that there is a good grievance protocol in place, but do workers actually know about it? And a small focus group of workers doing an audit might not be a representative sample. So this is where we can boost the sample and boost the quality of the data. It's also about actionable data. It's not only about getting statistically representative information, but getting that piece of information that can help an employer, a grower, a third-party entity act on a remediation plan quickly. And then technology does enable us to share data. So this is where we can all benefit from beginning to share the information so that collectively we can come up with creative solutions rather than one entity. The responsibility is shared. So the two tools that we use most are a two-way engagement platform. So it's a feedback in real time. Workers can choose their communication channel if they want to use web or text message chatbots. These chatbots adapt to their experience. So we use skip logic. So if they're a migrant worker, they might get different questions. If they're a female worker, they might have unique questions. And then all of the reports streamline into a comprehensive case management platform, but anonymizing for the phone numbers of the workers. Yet we still enable the employer to connect with them or the third party to speak with the worker, to text back and forth without actually knowing who they are and their phone number. So it's up to the worker to disclose their identity when they're ready. And we do oftentimes combine this with structured worker voice surveys. So this is a bit more of a way to begin analyzing and aggregating data on different standards. So we have a survey instrument aligned with the PNCs on human rights and social standards, which we've been piloting. And the benefit here is that with these more frequent structured touch points, we're able to anticipate and mitigate some risks. So last year, we embarked on the great journey of piloting the Alula platform with RSPO. So the objectives were to test the applicability of the tool for the palm oil sector. This was the first time we're engaging in palm oil, to connect workers to the employer and the RSPO to de-risk operations, and to create value for all of the stakeholders involved. So we're measuring our impact, and now we're planning for scale with lessons learned. So we had the opportunity to work with Wilmar in the Sabah region of Malaysia. We deployed the tool in 3 estates and 1 mill. We set up a feedback line. It is a text message chatbot and a voice chatbot available in local languages. And also we're pushing out more periodic surveys. We've had really good experience. We are now in the phases of expanding to more countries, and I'll speak to that in a little bit. So some initial feedback. So Wilmar took on the task of organizing a focus group, so a focus group of workers to gather some feedback about the tool and how the experience has been. So they gathered about 120 workers, 30 workers randomly selected from each estate. The workers were then asked a handful of questions. They indicated that all of them would either use the platform or would like to use the platform or like that it is available to them. We learned that many of them have preference for text message feedback. I think that's natural because in the voice line, they have to record their voice. So the text message does seem a bit more anonymous. And then we also found that the feedback line, so this channel to provide very personal feedback, was much easier for them to understand the purpose and the objective of it compared to the survey. Many of them were not super sure, like, why am I answering these questions? Where is this information going? Whereas the feedback line, they knew they would hear back, that something would be done about their specific question or issue. So that seemed more tangible. They also gave us a feedback to shorten the survey, so that's always we always get that from people that we engage with because we have higher ambitions than what we want to find out compared to what people actually will spend the time to do. We found that some workers did report that they were not super comfortable with their phones, and they have very simple phones. They didn't have even smartphones, but rather simple feature phones. We also learned that we should be socializing the tool more, and that we have to really find the right time to call people if we want to survey them. That is extremely, a very important piece. People are busy, they work all day, so finding the right time to connect with them is very important. So I'll wrap up by announcing our next phase of the pilot. So we are now engaging with downstream members, which is really exciting because we'll be working with from the estates and the mills to the processor and trader and the consumer goods company with the RSPO helping us lead the way. So this will be a project that we're expanding in Malaysia, Indonesia, and Guatemala. And we will also test the role of third parties. So we'll have 2 nonprofit partners that will be helping us do the implementation and socialization on the ground. One of our goals is to measure impact on corrective action plans. So can the tool encourage corrective action plans to be created and then for us to even capture the change over time in the efficacy of corrective action plans? And then we also will leave a final question mark of, what is the possibility for jurisdictional assessments? Can we use sampling approaches in landscape assessments, and can a tool like Alula be useful in that regard? So that's something to leave you with. Thank you so much for the time, and I look forward to engaging with you at the end of the panel.
Thank you very much, Farah. Yeah, very fascinating and great example of how technology can be a very useful way to empower smallholders and community members and workers as well. So the next panelist we have is Mr. Eric Malmstrom, the CEO of Saferaces. He'll be presenting on harnessing DNA and blockchain technology for first-mile palm oil traceability.
How do I fire it up? All right, good morning. So I'm going to talk to you today about really interesting breakthrough technology that can, I think, address first mile traceability, which in our view is foundational to overall traceability throughout the chain and also overall sustainability tracking, but then also how blockchain technology comes together with that to create a very robust system. So first, a quick bit of background on Saferaces. So our mission is to propel food tech into the future using nature's own DNA to make food production safer, more transparent, less wasteful. We're about 5 years old as a company. We're based in the Bay Area in California. We're a small team of scientists, engineers, manufacturers, food safety, quality practitioners, and commercial leaders. We work with pretty much food players throughout the value chain, so everyone from the producer, the processor, and the downstream brand. And we work not only in palm oil, but things ranging from produce to commodities, to even non-food products like pharma. And we're partnered with world-class research institutions and venture capital firms, including the FDA, the National Institutes of Health, and the National Science Foundation. So our core technology is based on a patented method that we've developed where we use edible DNA barcodes drawn from seaweed, which we essentially use a combinatorial method. We splice up the DNA-based sequences and combine them in unique customer-specific barcodes, and we can generate an infinite number of barcodes that then go directly onto food and agricultural materials in very trace amounts, so often parts per billion, parts per trillion. They're edible, invisible, they're tasteless, they have no effect on shelf life, they have no odor, no flavor. In the US, they're generally recognized as safe or GRAS. And then there's a whole digital kind of back end to this that aggregates data and basically pulls the whole system together. What this looks like in terms of hardware is what you see up here on the screen. So this is called the Mini Dart. It's the world's first DNA printer. So it's about the size of a computer printer. And that takes commands from a tablet or some type of web interface. And it then within the printer, you have vials of different DNA sequences that get combined together and then run through an injector into various food processing facilities. And we can work in pretty much any type of configuration, ranging from things like apples. So just to give you an example, we integrate into the carnauba wax coating that goes on an apple. But also for other crops, we can work in powder, liquefied form, we can spray on, we can do lots of different methods. But ultimately, the basic idea is that at one point in the supply chain, you tag the product with the barcode specific to a customer, and then downstream, the receiver at destination can do an on-site test, and within 20 minutes or less, get positive ID on the product coming from where they want it to come from or not. So I pretty much just explained this, and in the interest of time, I'll move on. How this works in palm oil. So I'm sure everyone sees the flurry of ongoing negative media attention about the palm oil supply chain. And as I mentioned at the outset, the first mile, in our view, is the critical gap. So if you don't have traceability from the plantation to the mill, then traceability from mill onwards doesn't really matter much. And our kind of theory of the case on the first mile is that there's been an absence of good solutions that are effective, practical in the sense that they can actually integrate into the chain and be used by the users, that are reliable, that are tamper-proof, and then most importantly, are cost-effective. Cost really matters. Once it becomes too expensive, and if there's not good price to performance, then the whole value proposition falls apart. How we integrate into a chain like palm oil is, and I won't go through the problem statement much, but we can basically be an on-the-ground, item-level track and trace method onto the product. So starting at the plantation, we can tag the individual fresh fruit bunch, which would be, so kind of the basic idea is that we operate on a loop system. So the receiver of the product, and for the first mile, that would be the mill, would be the kind of command and control node. They would print out the barcodes and dispense them out to their suppliers at the plantation level. The harvest crews would go through their harvesting, and then every time a fruit bunch would be harvested, there would be a tagging of that fruit bunch that also would not only have the DNA barcode, but would also be connected with a geotag, and a timestamp. Additionally, beyond the information that we're providing, you can then take other existing information like the aerial imagery from satellites, also just the basic supply chain data that is already being collected, aggregate that all onto a blockchain and have an auditable trail of information that collects all of this, and then kind of all around have the certification bodies like RSPO and otherwise verifying that all the stakeholders in the chain are doing what they should be doing. So just to get a little bit more granular in terms of the first mile and what's happening. So at the plantation, the harvest crew would apply the barcode to the palm FFB via an injector or a spray, and we can work with either. And that device that would be applying the barcode would also be connected to a smartphone that then would incorporate the geotag and the timestamp. Then not only is that happening on the product, but then you have each barcode application creating a data event that gets recorded, timestamped, and notarized in blockchain. Then the FFBs get loaded up onto the truck, they go to the mill, and then the receiver at the mill does a detection test of the palm FFBs based on a sampling plan to confirm positive ID of the barcodes. And then each of those test results flows into the blockchain as well. Back earlier this year, we did a small field proof of concept with a major plantation operator, global trader processor, and then a major consumer brand to see how this worked. And you can see kind of in the picture what the injection looks like. So it can go into the stem, but you basically shoot it into the stem. And we did this with hundreds of FFBs. And then when they went to the mill, we had 100% accuracy of detection of both the FFBs that were tagged and then being able to identify those that were not tagged. So it was very promising. In terms of the stability or the kind of shelf life of our DNA barcodes, they last over a year, well beyond what is required for the normal supply chain operations. And sorry, I should go back. That's not just in the actual stem tagging, but as we think about going down the supply chain to have a true end-to-end system, there's a second and third application that goes into the crude palm oil from mill to refinery and then into the RPO from the refinery onto the next step in the chain. In each of these, there's been extremely high rates of survivability and stability. So eventually the vision, we're starting with the first mile because, as I said, that's our view of where the central problem is. But ultimately, we can go down the chain and create these loop systems where the receiver at each point is able to kind of control the product that's coming into their facility in a much more robust way than they are today. And then with blockchain, with the existing software and other traceability systems that are already out in the market today, you can have much more confidence and assurance of the product supply chain from the plantation to the consumer. Right now, we're in the process of planning for a major commercial scale pilot within the next 2 months in Southeast Asia with our partners on the field trial that I mentioned earlier this year. We're going to be making a big announcement about that partnership shortly. But needless to say, our ultimate ambition is to become the industry standard, and we think that the technology certainly has the potential to do that and to go beyond our current partners to everyone in the palm oil supply chain. And so we welcome inquiries and discussions with other folks falling into these categories and otherwise. So please find me either at the back of the room later during this session or throughout the conference. And just to kind of put a sharp point on it, the ROI of our solution is that for our customers, right now, certainly you get a first mover advantage with the ability to not only defend margins, but also premium price for those in the kind of product supply chain. You mitigate the fraud and adulteration risk. And most importantly, you strengthen your brand equity and use a technology that's really transformational and addresses the core problem in the chain. So I will stop. Here's my contact information. Please feel free to reach out to me here. And thanks so much. I'll turn it over.
Thank you very much, Eric. And again, if you have any questions following all these, we are going to be splitting up into the different corners after all of this, so save some questions for them. I will have a lot. Blockchain's always way over my head, but it's very fascinating to me and an incredible solution to a lot of these challenges. So next we have Ms. Maria Goretti, the Palm Oil Program Manager for Solidaridad Colombia. She'll be presenting on fulfilling the potential of smallholder producers with digital solutions.